Our first topic is going to be the medical cannabis reform in Switzerland, challenges and opportunities. Please help me welcome Daniel Haymann, cannabis attorney, MLL Legal. Please give him a warm round of applause. You can grab a seat there. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Next up, we have Andreas, CEO of Pure Pharma. Once again, applause for Mr. Franziska Quadri, President Association of MedCan. Please. Rudolf Brenneisen, Swiss Academy of Pharmaceutical Sciences.
Sorry.
Peter Steger, President Managing Director of IG MedCan. Rene, Head of Sales, WEECO Pharma.
Hello.
Oops. And once again, Jörg Mäder, National Counselor, Doctor of Science. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for all my guests here. My name is Daniel Haymann. I'm a cannabis attorney in Zurich. I'm also the co-chair of the International Cannabis Bar Association Europe. We have a pretty cool event set up there, the legal track, which we do this year for the first time. So it's the first cannabis conference of lawyers. One guy jokingly told me it's a great opportunity to drop a hand grenade. I actually think that you all should join, check it out. We have some of the top lawyers from around the world here today, so make sure to check this out as well. Then, I'm just going to dive into the subject here. On 1st August, a bit over a month ago, the amendment to the Narcotics Act was enacted. And essentially, it reclassified cannabis from a prohibited narcotic to a to a controlled substance. And this reclassification entails various changes. One of the changes, predominantly, I would say, is that the treatment of medical cannabis no longer requires a special authorization from the Federal Office of Public Health. In other words, every doctor in Switzerland can now prescribe medical cannabis. Then also, the cultivation, the commercial cultivation and the export of medical cannabis is now a possibility out of Switzerland. And Swissmedic actually introduced a new system, a licensing system, which I will present on Sunday in more detail, but we will touch on that as well. Lastly, I would say that doctors have an obligation to gather data from the various treatments. And I would like to address my first question today to you, Franziska. These latest changes that everybody's so excited about at the moment, why do you think that there's a potential that they may actually fail the patients in Switzerland?
Okay, thank you that I be here and be the voice of the patients today. So I don't want to be too negative, but I have a lot of doubts because of the new law. But first of all, I want to say that the patients are very happy because the new law shows the benefit, the medical benefit of cannabis, and this is very important for us. So nobody has to tell us now that we are doing something wrong. But it's still difficult to find a doctor who knows how to prescribe it. The most asked question in our association is, where can I find a doctor? And without a doctor, it's still impossible. And when you have a doctor, the products are still very expensive and very low in dosage. So for many patients, it is not the right thing. We need a variety of cannabis flowers and products, different forms of intakes, and the prices have to come down a lot. And the last thing I want to address are the health insurance. In the moment, there are only a few patients who have financial support, and we improve our quality of life, and we reduce our costs, health costs, but we have to pay for ourselves. And when it stays like this, it will be difficult for the patients to pay for that.
Mm-hmm. So you're mentioning a whole range of serious challenges that we're facing. Perhaps before we continue to talk about those, could you introduce yourself and perhaps say a little bit about your background and your relationship to medical cannabis?
My name is Franziska. I have had an accident in 2009 and broke my neck. I have chronic pain and spasticity, and this is why I came to cannabis as a medicament. It's my painkiller, and I treat myself only with cannabis and some pharmaceutical medicaments against the spasticity, and I feel much better since I do this.
Mm-hmm. May I ask how you consume cannabis today? What are the main forms?
I take it in different forms. I take it oral,
yeah,
and I smoke it. Yeah.
Can you afford your cannabis medication, or are you within the old system, or how does it work for most patients within the MedCan association?
Yeah, for most patients in the MedCan organization, we have to look for ourselves. So I have to go to the black market or grow it by myself to afford it, because I use quite a high dosage, and it's not possible for me to get it legal. I have had a special permit from the BAG, but I could not afford it, so yeah. I went back to the illegal market.
Yeah. Perhaps I would like to ask Professor Brenneisen, what do you think are the main challenges with regard to getting cannabis, medical cannabis reimbursed from the health insurance? Do you think that we're getting closer to a potential reimbursement, or what are the steps required? I understand perhaps you can also give the audience a short introduction on yourself and also your role with the Swiss Society of Cannabis in Medicine.
I like to use the word cannabis dilemma, which means the patients in real life, they have by self-treatment the better knowledge than we pharmacists and physicians have. And our job is, and we fight for that, and now we have the revision of the narcotic law. We started in the 90s. I think we did the first THC study in the world on patients. And this opened the door, really, and it opened the discussion about the remedicination of cannabis. And what I mean with cannabis dilemma is we have to bridge the knowledge of the patients, and we have to motivate the clinicians and the pharmacists to train and to come to conferences, and instead of losing time for administrative work, for paperwork, which is now gone, they have to train themselves and to understand what patients mean in real life. This is our job, to bridge this gap between patients, real life, and science, and clinicians and pharmacists. And that's why we need this revised narcotic law.
Mm-hmm. What is the function of the Swiss Society of Cannabis in Medicine with regard to getting or working towards a health reimbursement from the insurances?
Well, my job is to motivate people to do clinical studies. The revised law is not eliminating the problem we are focusing. We have not sufficient clinical evidence. So we lose some problems, we get rid of some problems, but we create new problems. And in a pharmacy, the material has to be quality controlled. Quality control means costs. Costs means who pays for the costs? Yeah. Health insurances. These problems, we are more focused now with the revision than, or even more than before. And we do not get rid of by a revised law this kind of cost. So, and we have a pharmacopoeia, so are the flowers really ideal to be used as a drug itself in the pharmacy, or should we only focus on formulation? So this is another point I like to
we will definitely go into that subject a bit later on. I would like to go back and to the patient side. The Federal Office of Public Health estimated that maybe 110,000 patients, give or take, out of the, nobody knows exactly, 300,000 to 400,000 recreational users are consuming cannabis for medical purposes, but procuring it from the black market. What's your impression as the president of the Patients Association? Are your patients going to now switch over into the legal system?
It depends on the price. It depends if they can afford it. They really need a place to get it. It's dangerous to go to the black market, especially when you are a patient. But it's the question of the price, so and the question of the products.
So question of price, question of the variety of products as well that's accessible in the market. Do you see a possibility that this market will, at least this legalization, will bring people who have not touched cannabis at all, which means who have not been included in those 100,000 patient number, into the medical cannabis system as well? So other patients who had no connection to cannabis at all, because it's now potentially destigmatized.
Yes, of course, it has a huge potential, especially for elderly people with a lot of medicaments. So yeah, I see a big potential.
I would like to go back to Professor Brenneisen. Where do you draw the line between medical cannabis and, let's say, the recreational cannabis? Because I know in my circle of friends, for example, there are a lot of people who are just smoking a joint in the evening after a stressful day. They say they're very stressed. Okay, stressed depends on how you look at it, can be a health indication, and also a precursor for some ailments as well. So where do you draw the line? Where is it medical and where is it recreational?
I think it's very important to differentiate the non-medical use from the medical use. It's the same plant and it should be the same quality. This is clear. But politically seen, also concerning the health politics and so on, it's a consensus with the WEECO and my society. We are talking about non-medical use and we are talking about the medical use. Not recreational. Recreational, the term is stigmatized, so please talk about non-medical use, meaning this pilot project just starting in pharmacies. And as a pharmacist, I do not understand why the non-medical use, the logistics and the distribution of the flowers for non-medical use is in the same location in a public pharmacy where we should really distribute medicaments and drugs and not this kind of material for recreational use. And just in the canton of Bern now, the parliament is really discussing exactly this point, and the non-medical use should go via clubs and not via pharmacies. But maybe I'm alone with this opinion, but anyway.
Well, I fully agree with you on that point.
I tell you, the discussion right now going on in the canton of Bern is exactly in this direction.
Yeah.
Politicians do not understand why it's really distributed the same place where usually you get aspirin or whatever medication.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on that point, absolutely. So also political statement here. Talking about politics, maybe I would like to go to the National Council that we have here today. Thank you for joining us. These markets can converge, as we know. The non-medical markets and the medical markets. you're now in the subcommittee, you're working in the subcommittee towards a legal framework for a regulated, I don't say legalized, I'm saying a regulated adult use non-medical market. How's that going?
Well, thank you for having me here. As I told you in the opening speech, not yet much. The subcommittee started its work a few weeks ago with one meeting, which we discussed which topic we will discuss in the further meetings, which people we will invite for hearings. We maybe also will invite people from other countries. We hear it from Ben on, Uruguay, Canada, and other countries. Of course, we will do it over Zoom. I hope that they don't have to fly here. But in this question, not yet much happened. We are started. We just started.
And what's on the agenda? Let's say the timelines. Where do you see how much time do you think this is going to go to get to a first draft, let's say, legislation for?
That depends. That depends how good the answers are, or the information we get from the experts and from the other countries. How fast we will find a common sense how we want to handle it. And of course, this committee has people from all the parties, for all the major parties in our from Nationalrat, and so there will be very different opinions on it. So we have still people there who say, hey, it was a bad decision to go this way. It was even a bad decision to allow the medical use. This opinion still exists, so it will be a hard task. So please don't expect anything in a year. It will need more than a year, perhaps 2, 3. And then you perhaps know we have a 2-chamber system in Switzerland, so it goes from one chamber to the other and back and forward until we have legislation. And then in this topic, it is very reasonable that will be a referendum, that will collect signatures, so that at the end the people will have the last word. And that delays the whole process even by a half year to another full year. And after that, you have to make all the detailed regulations on the administrative level before it really works. So, as I said, take a seat, grab a beer.
So that's incredibly encouraging. Is there a possibility for the industry to accelerate that process?
In some way, yes. I know this from other topics. If we talk to the experts, to the producers, to the people, and everybody says something different, it doesn't go forward. So if you on yourself find a common ground, and including, as I said in my speech, a common wording, how you make the difference between medical and non-medical, or is it named recreational use, or is it called non-medical use? Is it the evolution way? If everybody says something different, we are slower. Because then we have to decide, and we are not the experts. We are politicians. We are not experts. So if the experts give us good facts, which take also into regard the counterpoint from the opposite side, then we are fast. That's also a mistake many lobbyists make. They only show us their perspective. And if I say, oh, he only talks in this way, I know, hey, yeah, he doesn't understand the other side. And then I will value his opinion much less. But if I realize he knows also the problems on this side, he also understands the legal problems there may be, or that one, or from the insurance, then I will listen much more careful. Okay.
Do you have a personal opinion on what we discussed before, the dispensing of medical cannabis in pharmacy? Of non-medical cannabis for non-medical use in pharmacies?
Not yet, because I'm not a consumer and I won't be, so I'm not interested in this product. So I really have to learn from the people who use it or who will distribute it, what is the best way to do it on the right, so there are a few, as less misunderstandings as possible. And of course, for me, it's always a question, how is it differentiated from other products? in this realm, it's the tobacco products or alcohol products. We know over-the-counter is no specialized shops for alcohol. We don't know it here in Switzerland. So will this new product change this approach or not?
Well, I would like to go over to Peter Steger, who is the president of the Producers and Manufacturers Association of medical cannabis in Switzerland. Where do you see the opportunities with this change in law for the producers?
The opportunities I see in the larger product variety probably, but it depends on the doctors. I think you can talk to the doctors on a different level now because it's not under exemption with all this bureaucracy that was before. Still a lot of administrative hurdles though, but you can talk to doctors and doctors are a bit more willing because now it reached the level of some medicine at least that it hasn't had before. But then how it really affect the producers, we will see.
Yeah. We were talking about delivery forms and the variety of products. And one of the issues is that, at least in the previous system, the way medical cannabis was dispensed mostly as magisterial or extemporaneous preparation in the form of tinctures of oil or oils. Do you see any potential there to be more innovative with regard, and do you think that more forms will emerge over the course of the next, let's say, few months, year? What's the timeline? Would be interested to hear your view.
Yeah, I think the chances in the applications, yes. We have borders of magisterial preparation, so in the production we are limited. We are limited to monographs or the position paper that we could do together with the cantonal pharmacists, because there was no monography for doing extracts, so we made a position paper that we now have to follow. So in the regard of how we produce an oil or how we produce a liquid, or we are restricted to the existing literature because we are moving in a field that is actually not the normal field of medicine. You have authorized products that went through the whole three steps of ending with the clinical proof, and here we have the possibility to go in a gray area. Well, it's not a gray, it's a white area, but it's still an area that it's actually not designed for a larger scale kind of thing. And this we have to regard. So innovation in the production is a bit difficult if you don't go into an authorization process. Yeah. But in the application, you are a bit more free. So if you do it as a suppositorium or another kind of application form, you can try. And this is a chance. Yeah.
I think that's also what Professor Brenneisen mentioned. There needs to be a very close coordination with the doctors who need to understand what type of delivery methods are there and what they can prescribe. Maybe can one of you describe a little bit how the system works today with a magisterial preparation and a prescription? How does it look? How is the medical cannabis supply chain from the doctor? How does it work to the patient?
Well, I can maybe explain the way I experience it with our partner. He receives now more recipes than before. And he already had the last 10 years a lot of recipes, and they were quite precise. At the moment, some of the doctors, because there are many doctors now pushed by patients, sometimes write just a prescription on cannabis flower with THC. That's it, that's all.
Yeah.
So, of course, then the pharmacist has to talk to the doctor, or the doctor asks the pharmacist, how should we now do it? And that's not the normal way. So the lack of information on the doctor's side is something that we have to fill in the next years. Because if not, the whole cannabis branch will not be on a good foundation. So lack of information is the thing that we have to fill in, and it's more about education than it's about education on a level that has a common ground, not from one company that produces or from the other. And unless we reach that, we will have strange prescriptions coming in.
And the prescriptions that are done to, maybe just for the audience to understand a bit more how it works, I know we have people coming from South Africa and Uruguay and other places. Such a prescription, how does it look? I mean, what does it say? Does it typically for a tincture, does it say 12% THC and 5% CBD, or what? How does it work?
I mean, since we had this exemption period, that means that ended now in 1st of August, we had only the possibility to prescribe oils, tinctures, but not flowers. That was completely forbidden. So there were no exemptions given by the BAG, Federal Office of Health, for flowers. Now it is a bit in the will or in the power of the doctor or of the physician to prescribe also flowers, although it's a bit unclear in which kind of form it should be given by the pharmacy. So in the past, the prescriptions were mostly on 2 or 3 known extracts, and but now it all changes. And I mean, it's only a month, so I cannot really precisely say, but it's a lot of chaos also.
Yeah. So maybe, Andreas, if we can get your input, because you're, I know that in the family you run a pharmacy, right? And now you run a pharmaceutical company, basically.
Yes.
Right?
We have also some of these former customers, and they only got dronabinol as drops, and that's it. Yeah. So far we didn't have any other indications or forms of use. We got already now a few phone calls from doctors who are completely lost. So they say, I want to prescribe my patient this and this, but I have no clue where do I get it from, and so on. So I think it's how Peter mentioned, it's really a very important point is to get the specialists, like the pharmacists, like the medical persons, up to a level of know-how which they afterwards can discuss also then with potential suppliers. Because at the moment, they have no clue. It's really, there is a real lack of know-how and probably also experience, but I think this experience has to grow now with the potential use. Yeah. And I think as a producer, we can guarantee a certain conformity. We have to guarantee the conformity with the law, but also, let's say, we can, from a genetic point of view and from a flower point of view, we can guarantee a continuous quality and a continuous content and strength of the flowers or whatever it is that we will sell. And so I think that's something that we have to learn for the time being, but also to proactively go to the pharmacies and go to the doctors and teach them and train them towards the correct use of medical cannabis.
Yes. Can you give us a little bit of a flavor how you're building up your business basically in this very challenging environment that is unclear and still quite open?
So I think we have limited ourselves at the moment for a few products, which we then will have also the necessary information available together with the product that we can provide to the pharmacies and to the doctors, and to get they on board with regard to their know-how, and to also afterwards get the necessary information from the feedback from the patient, that we know that's the right stuff that we are doing. I think that's a lot. It's a little bit try and error at the moment also. Yeah.
And cannabis flower, is that going to be part of the offering?
For sure, yeah. Because if you look at the results that we were just getting from the German market, because they have started 2017, and I think about more than half of it is flowers that they are prescribing. Okay. And this is working in the German market, and also the pharmacists, they get bulk packs and then just pack it then afterwards for the different patients.
Yeah. Rene, I didn't forget you. I'll come back to you. Okay? I'm just saying. No stress. I'm just asking Professor Brenneisen another question here, because I know that there's, from a scientific point of view, big challenges with regard to standardizing flour. So, what's your position on this?
For me, it's clear the flour is the less expensive medication we can have on the market. And I like the full spectrum strategy. But for a physician or a pharmacist trained in school medicine, this is dirty pharmacology. Unless he is a phytotherapist or whatever, the physician, he likes a pure molecule, like THC, CBD, and so on. And every process added to bring this flower into the buds, into a formulation, increases the costs. But of course, it makes this preparation more compatible and more acceptable to the physician, because he likes a galenic formulation and not the whole flower itself. So this is a problem we often are not thinking about. What is the acceptance? The physician, he has to write the prescription, not the pharmacist. And how does he understand that nature is cheaper? Also, we have a quality problem. We have the constituents are not stable in the flower. This is another point. We have pharmacopoeia regulation. So we have really to find a compromise between what's going on in real life and what the physician is willing to understand.
Cannabis is really quite a unique medication, because the way it works in many places is that the pharmacists are actually the ones who are educating the doctors. So don't you think that with this change in law, there's a bit of a, let's say, grassroots, demand-driven, bottom-up, let's say, movement that will educate doctors how to prescribe, and part of that will be also flower?
If I may add, just this point is the flowers. How are they used? What is the administration form of the flowers? Yeah. There's an ethical point in medicine, in pharmacy. So the flowers usually in real life are smoked. Maybe some patients are using, who are not able to smoke, are using a vaporizer. Just to mention, next week I have a meeting with the Cantonal Pharmacists Association of Switzerland, and they are really concerned about the administration form. So the flower, okay, maybe the flowers are now in the pharmacy, not in the medical practice, of course, in the logistics center is the pharmacy. What is an ideal and most accepted formulation and administration form? Is it a vaporization? Vaporization is not easy. You have to train vaporization and inhalation. So this is the discussion going on next week, and I have been invited to talk about the options. How do we bring the whole flower to the body? This is now the point we have to discuss. I'm a big fan of the flowers. We need the full spectrum. But how do we bring, what is the ideal formulation? Not too expensive, because the health insurance are not paying for flowers. Maybe they pay for formulations.
Do you see a potential? We see in the US very popular vaporizers in the non-medical, where you have standardized oils, really do you see this as a possibility within the magisterial preparation framework?
We have hundreds of devices on the market. But Swissmedic and also this Association of Cantonal Pharmacists, they require medical devices. As far as I know, we have two devices on the market from a German company. We did a validation of many hundreds of this kind of thing, but they have to be medically approved by Swissmedic as medical device.
So let's say we have a medical device. What do we do with the cartridges?
So we need validation studies. We need companies spending money to validate these devices, and at the end, the health insurances will not pay for a non-medical device.
Okay. Once we have a medical device, though, the room...
It is well known that the BAG is also a fan of vaporization, so we are doing these discussions for many years. That's why we validated this kind of devices, and they are excellent. But as I said, if a person is a non-smoker, a patient, a non-smoker, you have to train inhalation. And this, I tell you, this is not so easy. In addition, THC is causing a cough, and it's irritating. THC itself is irritating. So you need a formulation covering and masking this irritating effect of THC.
Okay.
Meaning formulation, meaning higher costs and that.
Now I would like to go to Rene. Thank you for joining us here.
Thanks. It's my first panel, so I'm very nervous.
Don't worry. So Germany, as we've heard, 2017 already introduced legal cannabis market.
Correct.
What can we learn from Germany's mistakes? Or at least you can tell us what's not going well in Germany and what we could do better here in Switzerland.
Okay, I think one point you mentioned is definitely the supply of knowledge to the market. That means the doctors have to know, first thing, the paperwork you have to do to fill out a correct prescription. So the patient have not to turn around from the pharmacy back to the doctor, go around. That means you need a basic level of knowledge for the doctors and for the pharmacies. And I think the best way is to bring them together with the patient, to share the knowledge from the patients, because you have a lot of patients, they use cannabis for many years, they have knowledge, you can use them. And when you have a new patient who's a non-user, or for now, you can bring this knowledge to the new user or to the new patient to start on a low dosage and raise up from time to time and see what's the effect. So it's a learning for all practitioners on the market for sure.
Can you give us a little bit about your background and what you do at WEECO in Germany?
I'm head of sales at WEECO. I'm in pharmaceutical business for 23 years, 5 years in cannabis business. And it's always the same. At the first, a lot of people think it's a good thing, other people think it's a bad thing. There's a lot of opinions, and we need knowledge and evidence in the therapy to go forward.
Last time we talked, you mentioned something really interesting about how the law came about in Germany. You said it's really patchwork. Can you give us a little bit the idea what you mean and why you think it's different here in Switzerland?
Yes, because in Germany the cannabis law was driven by patients who want to grow cannabis by themselves. So the authorities have to find a way to give them the opportunity to get cannabis, and it was more, they were set under pressure to bring a law. And for me, the different laws in cannabis are not harmonized in Germany. That means on one point it's handled like an RX, for another one it's raw material. When it comes to reimbursement, it's a problem. So law have another standard than the healthcare insurance use, and that's a problem because the medication, when it comes out of the pharmacy, it's very expensive. So people with low income, they will stick to the black market mostly. And that's the point. I think it's the reimbursement of the product will be a game changer for the patients.
Well, perhaps Peter, how can we get to a point where we make reimbursement sexy for the, for the health insurers, or bring it to a point where they see also some financial incentive to actually put money in a special extra insurance, for example, or something like that?
Yeah, I had several discussions in the last years with the associations. Also in the association, the SGCM, is my duty, the politics and law, and to bring that somewhere with the health insurance companies. And we have the situation that in a world where we operate in a medicinal preparation area, there is only one very unstable article in the ordinance, that in some hard cases, if the doctor proves, individualized proofs, with a patient that has all therapies tried already and didn't work, that maybe it's more a death and life case, health insurance companies will reimburse, and this is the only article that it works at the moment. At the moment there's around 30%, that was before the new law, 30% was 30% from the applications were confirmed positive. It's not a lot, it's much less than in Germany. And in the discussion with the associations, I think I can say that they told me quite directly that they don't close anymore an eye on this efficacy that they sometimes did. We have a lack of efficacy, so we cannot prove, clinical proof. But there is a field that is operating well, is a field that is under the roof of the FMH, so the Doctors Association, and the education for, I don't know the English word, Fähigkeitsausweis. Doctors can go into the education, it's around 200 hours for acupuncture or other kind of therapies, And then there are additional health insurers are willing to reimburse if a doctor has this certificate. So I don't know if you know the Czech model from the Czech Republic. It's kind of similar. They have the system that if a doctor has a certificate for being a doctor prescribing cannabis, they have the reimbursement level is super high. It's over 90% then. Because I understand if you as a doctor have no experience and you prescribe, that the health insurance companies say, well, why should we reimburse something like that? So I think at the time now we are a bit behind. That's something I want to say here, because we should have prepared things like that before. So everything is dynamic. So we had the time period of exemption period that ended now. Now we have a period maybe of 5 years. It was interesting listening to you about maybe in 4 or 5 years we have even the next step of liberalization. And if we don't use this 4 years, and I'm glad for the 4 years, make it 5 for me, because we need that time to have one foot in the reimbursement. If we don't have, we will have chaos in 5 years, because people that don't get reimbursed therapy and they're chronic pain pay people for years and years, they cannot afford it. We lose it in the pharmacological way. They don't go over the pharmacy, they don't go over the doctor maybe, and that will be very bad for the cannabis as a healing kind of method. And if you don't use it now, this 4 years or 5, and we have to find not new wheels or invent new wheels. We have to go into this direction that we have education under the roof of it's called SIWF actually. Yeah. And it's a long project, and the associations should work together. We started that project a little bit, and I hope that we reach that. That would be a one way. Yeah. Did I answer a question anyways? Did you?
Yes, and more. That's great. Sorry. Thank you very much. I have another question for you as well. We see at these conferences and a lot of producers from abroad. You know, for example, South Africa. We know there's established producers who can actually already produce under the highest levels, EU GMP certified, and so on. What's the real opportunity here? I mean, you're representing obviously the Swiss producers. Mm-hmm. Can a foreign producer join your association as well, or is it like a...
What do we say? No, they can. They can if they have a company in Switzerland.
If they have a company in Switzerland. Yeah. Okay. Do you see an opportunity? I mean, the volumes are obviously today still quite low. Mm-hmm. However, we have an opportunity now as a Swiss, with the new regulation to export medical cannabis. So we could also actually establish ourselves as a European hub, and also Swiss quality, Swiss stamp, all top-notch, exporter of medical cannabis, all kinds of products, and also lead in innovation. Where do you see but the Swiss function here in that field?
You gave already an answer, so we should go in an innovative way. We have, I think, a very good legal framework. I think, as I compare to the other countries I know in Europe, we have the best. It's not perfect, it's far from perfect, but it's a bit more flexible. We don't have this kind of system that a grower has in Germany, having a license from the state, sell it to the state, and so on. So we are a bit more flexible. I think also we have very pragmatic cantonal pharmacists who play an important role. They want to harmonize, so we have hopefully one framework for whole Switzerland. That's important for innovation, because if you do your stuff only for one little canton, it doesn't work. So this is something ongoing. It's very important. And if we achieve that, then we have a chance. But just the numbers are so much lower than people sometimes think. Please don't lose your head. I mean, we all see that there's like a medical facility growing madness in the world at the moment, and I really think a lot of them are gonna see it coming pretty hard when they can sell all the product. It's quite mad what's happening. All right. I was told 15 minutes, so we have 1 more minute, and I would like to give the last word also back to Franziska. Where do you see the patients in 3-4 years? What's like the dream, the best case scenario in your head for medical cannabis in Switzerland?
Oh, I hope they all get their medicine and they can afford it. And yeah, and I hope that the doctors will join us, that the doctors see that how it helps, and that it's a big option for sick people. But I'm not so optimistic. I don't think that 3 years will be enough. I think it's probably more, 4, I would say 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. But I hope we will have the access to it as soon as possible, because there are 100,000 patients waiting for it.
Yeah. I'm actually quite optimistic. I do think that these changes that have happened now have also made some waves in the media. I see a lot of commercial opportunities, which are incredibly important in the context of bringing things forward. And I can assure you that everybody sitting on this panel here will do their utmost to bring it forward and give more attention to medical cannabis in the public sphere. So now I would like to open for questions. And we have the mic here to go around the audience. So please, who's first?
Any questions?
Good afternoon. Thanks for this interesting information. I have a question concerning coordination of the interests. Who could be the best part to coordinate the interest between the producing industry, between the patients, between the lawgivers, and let's say the free market? Could it be the BIA as a Swiss government organization or a patient organization? What is in this field the idea of the audience?
Shall I answer?
Yes, please.
It is our society.
Yeah.
We are both founders of the Swiss Society for Cannabis in Medicine. Mm-hmm. So this society is acting like a scientific advisory board for the BAG. Mm-hmm. And we have industry here. We have research here. Used to be a researcher. We are networking. We try to bring all our partners and key players on the same boat. We are very close to the BAG, as I said. We have politicians. We have. I think this is the society to approach for questions, for networking. So please, we are here. We are both board members. So.
I would like to add to that, it's obviously, it's not just one organization where we have a whole ecosystem, but I think we're all in very close contact on a very regular basis. There's these conferences taking place. We talk all the time on a regular basis on what's happening. There's an exchange between the associations. In my view, there's a really good, actually the flow of information is going pretty well. The challenge is now to bring it really to the industry and to doctors, pharmacists.
As I said, we need education.
Yes.
And I used to teach at university for 40 years, so I know what education is. Yeah. And that's why we are now organizing, this is my PR, but I think I'm allowed to mention this. We have an international, I think really the best program conference of the year will be performed in Basel in October. So please come to this International World Conference on Medical Cannabis. Come to my booth over there and I get you the information. And we will have politicians, we will have BAG, we will have Swiss Medic, we have physicians, we have patients, you will be present. We have a patient panel. Yep. So this is how we promote medical cannabis now to the broad public, to specialists, to physicians, to everybody.
And it's going to be
in the same hall, in the same lecture hall in Basel at the big conference center.
And notably, it's also co-organized by the International Association of Cannabis in Medicine, correct?
This is the partner organization is IACM, So we are.
So it spans
somewhat
beyond just Switzerland.
We are the Swiss ambassador of IACM,
Yes.
but we are an independent society, and
Yes.
this is a cooperation between IACM and our society.
Yeah, and I can really encourage everybody who's interested, really also on the more technical and also scientific side of cannabis, to join that conference, which is what, 19 and 20 October.
2021st.
By the way, the
21st.
main organizer is Ben, so he's my partner.
Exactly. So you know, there's.
That's why
Exactly.
it will work.
Yes,
We need a
absolutely.
professional for that part.
All right. We hope to have answered your question. Okay. Next.
Hello, my name is Jacob. I'm from Copenhagen and represent Tetrapharm Technologies. In Denmark, we have similar problems. The doctors don't want to prescribe. But instead of fighting, I think actually the solution lies, we need proof. We need the producers to take the responsibility and do these tests and do the clinical trials. So we have the proof and the evidence that it works. And I'm also happy for broad spectrum, but the problem is for a doctor, if it works, why does it work? What made it work? You know, there are 40-something molecules in cannabis. Which one worked? So I hope you agree with me up there, and that's actually my question. If you agree that the producers also have to take the responsibility and start the clinical trials and find the funding. Thank you.
Andreas,
would you like to answer?
I have nothing to add.
Ich bin so.
I think it's a question of funding. I was 15 years in clinical research. I know what it costs. And I don't know whether a company present at the moment here is capable of paying a really pivotal trial. So maybe we have to go to the European Union and get something from Horizon 2020. But unfortunately, we are no longer part of Horizon 2020, Switzerland.
No, but the problem with the funding is that 98% of all funding goes to recreational as a non-medical cannabis.
Yeah.
Only 2% goes to medical. And here, I think a big part of the problem lies, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I want to mention. 20 years ago, we tried to get federal money. Usually, at a university person, the biggest goal is to get federal money, non-industry money. And the Swiss National Science Foundation refused to sponsor our rehabilitation THC project at the rehabilitation center in Basel. And now they are paying money for the pilot projects for the non-medical use. This is exactly the situation you are mentioning.
I think one reason is that our industry is weak at the moment if they are concentrating on cannabis medicine, because it was a very small kind of thing. And I just this week was invited to speak in front of Big Pharma next spring, and now Big Pharma is interested. Well, in my position I have to present, because I have some duty as the president of this association that I speak for the producers. But on the other hand, this is probably the normal way it goes. Now we will see if Switzerland does something that didn't happen in Germany at the moment. I don't know Denmark. If bigger companies come and go into authorization process because they believe in the indication and they don't target or torpedo their existing system of products, sometimes they have a problem. So I know, for example, some big pharma doesn't want to torpedo their own kind of portfolio of neuropathic pain medicine, so they're a bit afraid of that. So a lot of reasons, but probably it goes slowly into this direction. But funding would be super, but there's not enough interest probably.
Yeah,
for that.
and also patenting is an issue with cannabis medicine.
And the patent issue is also,
so there's a lot of really big challenges to incentivize a pharmaceutical company to throw that money into cannabis. But there's potentially other ways. Yes? Any other questions?
Yes, hello. While I appreciate your perspective as a pharmacist that the isolating of the THC or CBD or so is well within your comfort level, I think it's been fairly well documented that there's an endocannabinoid system, and there are cannabinoids that have an entourage effect that is the activation of the true medicine. So isolating and only using those particular ones don't really have the impact of the full spectrum. And I would also have to think that on the insurance side, they would recognize that, like Franziska is taking this medicine and she is not on other medicines to address her pain level. So I'd like to understand really how you envision just that entourage effect and the influence of the insurance companies in payment when these patients want to be able to take a medicine that directly affects their need without the use of these other pharmaceutical medicines.
Maybe I would like to just address one part of the questions and maybe the other. I think the fact that you can show that there is a strong reduction in a certain therapy of other medicines that are very expensive for health insurers. I think that should be an incentive, a real incentive for health insurers to find a reimbursement program for medical cannabis. When it comes to the isolation, I would like to hear.
I mean, the term entourage is used so often and nobody understands exactly what it means. And for me as a pharmacologist, the non-cannabinoids and this full spectrum situation is really a black box. We do not understand in details what it means and how it works. But I agree with you, we need the full spectrum medication, we need the pure isolated compound, and we need the extract. It's not an instead, it's an addition. We need, for certain patients and indications, we need the pure THC. For another indication, we need the full spectrum flower. But as I said, in full spectrum, we do not understand pharmacologically in what's going on. Not yet. It's very difficult. Come to the Basel conference, and Lumir Hanush from Israel, he is the guy on terpenoids. He tries to explain why we use the full spectrum. Not only, and always talking about THC, CBD, but also about non-cannabinoids. Come to Basel.
Thank you. You said in the introduction speech that every physician in Switzerland can prescribe cannabis. Who does the education of these physicians in order that they know what to prescribe for which indication and what dosage, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I think
maybe, I mean, it was mentioned before, no one. So it was a question we had with the BAG years ago, what system we follow. No doctor has in university something to do with cannabis medicine. So now all of a sudden everyone can prescribe. Should we do like a certificate? Do we want to filter those people, those doctors, those physicians? But we decided not to. So at the moment we have a situation of a lack of information, no education is needed, and patients come and push it. So I don't mean a negative, but it is, if this would be a new drug synthesized by pharmacy, by a pharmaceutical company, it had no chance, no chance. But because patients really want it, doctors get to know it a bit more, but it's a lack of education, and that really has to be filled in the next year.
Yeah, but to add on that, the Swiss Society of Cannabis in Medicine is actually doing that. Yeah. I mean, they're preparing drafts for Empfehlungen, recommendations for
guidelines, guidelines for different indications, and they are published for everyone. And this is on the website of our association, the SGCM, and it's for the doctors, also for the patient. That is based on the experience of the last years in Switzerland.
And so there's also a cooperation with certain universities and institutions, education institutions, to actually create programs for doctors, specifically tailored for medical cannabis. So that's happening.
Good that you mentioned.
All right, I think we're right on time here. One last question.
Thank you. The situation you describe in Switzerland today reminds me a lot of Germany in early 2017, when dronabinol was the norm, flower was still very weird, there was complications with education and all of that, but things changed very rapidly in Germany and flower became the most important product in the market. Do you think that there's a chance that that may happen in Switzerland as well, that 1-2 years from now flower will be the main product, and if not, why not?
I think looking at the mindset at the moment, I think most of the doctors and pharmacists probably will go for a standardized product. But I think it's not the idea of the customer. Most of the customers or patients, they probably want something else. So it's a little bit what will happen. I don't know exactly. My gut feeling is that it probably will go more into pots than into standardized product, because then they see also it's processed, it's not the same as it was, and then we are again at the full spectrum discussions that we have, and maybe you have to come to Basel and get more information about the full spectrum.
I think one excellent option for the flowers to bring back to the pharmacy is a nanotech formulation. Right now, and for years already, I'm cooperating with a German company, and we are already in phase 2-3 with a nanotech formulation, which means this new high-tech Galenix is able to break down the whole flower in a formulation, meaning we have or theoretically all 400-500 constituents in one modern formulation. And this brings us give us a chance to go to Swissmedic and to approve a modern high-tech formulation based on the whole flower. I think this is the future. Unless on the other side, this formulation will be very expensive. We are talking about 100 million Swiss francs already invested in the development of this new formulation. I am not allowed to mention the name, but check what's going on.
Well, I think my personal opinion is going to be a combination, like it is in other markets. I'm half Israeli, so I saw in Israel how flower has completely taken over the market and has established itself as the cannabis medication and delivery method, which is strange with all the innovation that's going on in Israel. It's probably, knowing the Swiss mentality, I think it's going to be a combination. All right. I would like to thank all my panelists here for participating in this lively debate. And I would like to thank Ben, of course, and the organizers, everybody, for setting this all up in this manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.